As expected, Michigan football is the third straight Big Ten champion, having taken down Iowa 26-0 in the Big Ten championship game. Amazing weekend in Indianapolis, which caps off with Michigan being the number one team in the country, set to go to the Rose Bowl to face off against Alabama. I couldn't be any happier about it. We're going to talk about all of it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Monday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hull, publisher of Wolverines Wire 3 USA Today Sports Media Group. It is a struggle session over here after the full 13-game gauntlet with a bye week that received no rest. And I met a bunch of you out in Indianapolis, some just out on the street, some while I was having breakfast, some in the hotels. Some I don't think I met anyone at the game, but some at the meet and greet with the Fort, which was from the Wolverine.com. That was absolutely incredible. Some of you got to meet one of my main sources, actually, who came and graced themselves with their presence at District Tap between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m. or so. So that was very cool. So like very, very happy to put some names and faces to just people out there and get to interact with you. To me, that is the best part, right? That is the absolute best part. The worst part is leaving this little one here that is begging for attention right now underneath me, and that would be Zuri. Which Zuri, people talked about you that I met. People mentioned you. She's a famous puppy. But nonetheless, I mean, it was just absolutely, to me, that's the best part, is getting to go, because it's like I was telling Sarah, it's just a joyous, absolute joyous occasion to go to Indianapolis, right? Especially because there is an expectation that Michigan will win when they go to Indianapolis, and everyone's just, is excited to kind of culminate the regular season with the first postseason game. Everyone's excited to be there. Everyone's excited to see each other. It's a grand occasion, and it was absolutely wonderful. Indianapolis is my least favorite drive that I ever have to make, whether it's for Indiana games or Big Ten Media Days. I love it in December. I absolutely love it. And it was made better by a Michigan win, of course, because then the joyousness continues. And that joyousness continued into Sunday, with the revelation of Michigan playing Alabama. We'll get to that in a moment. I was your man on the ground for that as well. But it obviously, the game was a little frustrating. It was a little lackluster. Michigan against Iowa. Iowa had upped the game, and I'm not terribly surprised. It kind of just felt like any of those games. It kind of felt like the Maryland game, except that there was never. I didn't doubt Maryland, I didn't doubt that Michigan was going to beat Maryland. It was never too close for comfort per se. I mean, yes, I wanted to see like a 40-something to single digits, and we didn't get that. I predicted 35 to 7, and we didn't get that. Certainly, if Michigan would have converted a couple drives from field goals into touchdowns, then we could have had 42-0. But that's not how that game went. And it's fine. It just kind of felt like Michigan was just kind of not all in the right spot. So JJ still has some issues, I've been told, that he's kind of dealing with. Not Greg Crippen, but Drake Nugent is a guy that I was told before the game, and other people have said this now, and I was told by a colleague, not like by a source, that Greg Crippen was in dire potential situation of not playing. So it's there was a lot kind of going on, uncharacteristic drops and all these types of things. Like, Michigan knows it's supposed to beat Iowa, right? It's kind of like just any one of those games where it's like, okay, Michigan knows it's better than, right? And I understand it's a championship game. You want to put your best foot forward. There's a difference between winning your third straight Big Ten championship and winning the first one. The first one, they pulled stuff out of the bag, right, for the Iowa game, and that showed, right? They were going to make sure that game was over. Once Michigan went up 10-0, it was just kind of done, right? lots of turnovers, big punt return from Samaj Morgan, 2 touchdowns by Blake Corum, and a shutout. I mean, kind of what more do you want? Like, I wasn't even under the pretense except for when Tommy Doman had the fumble that bounced backwards 20 yards after it hit, that Iowa was even going to have a chance to score. There was just no point in which they felt threatening in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, it's a good win, and they still Iowa'd it up, and Michigan still could have won by more, but it did what it needed to do, and it got out of there, and didn't really show you anything, and that's fine. Like I said to someone after all of this, I think it was Clayton. The thing about it is, no, it was my best friend, Doug. I was saying, like, the thing about this win, winning 26-0, that feels like an Alabama type win in their heyday, right? They're still in their heyday, but, in their heyday, in the middle of the 2010s, right? It felt like a type of game where it was just like, yeah, they just went out there and won. It wasn't anything very exciting. They just went out there and did it, and it was fine. But, I mean, to get a 4-score win, where I guess technically, 4-score win. Yep, 4 scores. Beat the spread and all of that. To get that against a ranked opponent, I mean, I know that I see a lot of people tweeting that, saying that people are complaining about it. I haven't seen any complaints myself, but if you are complaining about it, listen, they did what they needed to do and got out of there. No major injuries outside of the ones they already had. There's things to fix. Yes, the offensive line looked putrid in this one, but they've got a month to fix it. The offensive line has had its moments where it has not looked good this year, especially late, but they can fix it. These are players who have been able to do it. That, Carson Barnhart, Trente Jones, Drake Nugent, Ladarius Henderson. These are players that have been able to play at that high level. We've seen them do it. Whether it was last year or early points this year, we've seen them do it. And so they just got to put it together. Have a little bit more complicated run schemes. I thought there was a lot of yards left out on the ground, some missed blocks and missed holes, things of that nature. A couple times that JJ tripped on the turf. The turf looked like it had some seam problems, all of that. And yet they still won comfortably. There was never really a doubt that Iowa was going to get back into the game. So unless Michigan made a bigger mistake, and JJ had a couple throws that were a little errant, but again, no harm, no foul. Didn't end up actually hurting them. But next, we get into the Rose Bowl. I am excited. I was running around the Westin like a super excited puppy, like the puppy that thinks she heard she hears voices outside, so now she's sitting on her perch by the window. That's what I was like, because I was super excited about the Rose Bowl. I was super excited just about the big name caliber of this matchup. That's what I wanted. I didn't want Florida State. No offense to Florida State, but I didn't want that. We'll get into that. Like I said, I was there when the team was announced. I'm sure a lot of you saw the video. We're going to talk about it here in just a moment. But before we do, when you are hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And it is super easy to create a job post on LinkedIn Jobs. Once you do, add the purple hashtag hiring frame to let everyone know that you are hiring. You can dip into your own personal transfer portal to help your team win your own championship, just like Michigan just did, by going to LinkedIn Jobs and finding those candidates you want to talk to. Now, LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you've got that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They've even just launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Zuri hears my neighbor outside. I can hear them. So she's out there. She's no longer with us in the room, as I hope. I have to say, like, again, I really appreciated meeting so many of you out there in Indianapolis. It's weird to me because a lot of you know my face, mostly from this show, I'm assuming. And it's like I'm just doing this in a spare, like my second bedroom, right? Before I was doing it in my basement with the little set I created. This isn't really a set. I mean, it's a little bit of a set, not really. It's just my desk and a couple lights and a bookshelf, and my treadmill is over there and it's going woefully unused, and there's still a bunch of boxes from having moved that I haven't done anything with. I should probably put those in the basement, and especially because I need to start using the treadmill here. Having put on, I don't know, 50 pounds since the last time Michigan played Alabama. That's not great. It's not good at all. Need to tone down a little bit. But yes, Michigan is playing Alabama. I am stoked for that personally. I've long been saying I don't want the path of easiest resistance because we saw what happened last time when that happened. Florida State would have been that. I have talked to people all year long within the program. Some of my sources, I know people like to make fun of that, but it is. Some of my sources who are within the walls of Schembechler Hall, who've long said that they are like licking their chops at the idea of playing Florida State, and that's even with Jordan Travis. And even without him, that would have been even more so. And while that is great, considering everything that is kind of going on, all the outside noise that's mostly died down, but kind of started coming roaring back yesterday a little bit, I would much rather that Michigan goes and takes on a harder opponent and takes them down. Because if you are supposedly the best team in the country, listen, anyone can lose any given Saturday. Alabama lost to Texas, right? And Alabama theoretically is a better team than it was. That's what people say. It's a much different team. That's not how they were spoken of before, but I'll take their word for it. It's I think that while that holds true to some degree, at the same time, I'd rather you face the brand name. I want the most exciting game, right? And it's the most exciting game in all of bowl season. You got Jim Harbaugh versus Nick Saban. I don't know a lot of people on Alabama's team. I can only name you two offhand, and that's Jalen Milroe and Isaiah Bond. That's it. It would be cool if my last name was Bond. But, for all this talk that Alabama is just a completely different team, I mean, to some degree that is true. But, since Milroe started coming up, we're going from, I'm just going to read you what their scores are. So Middle Tennessee, they destroyed 56-7. Then they lost by 10 to Texas. They beat South Florida, USF, and not a good team at all, 17-3. Beat Ole Miss 24-10. That shows you how good their defense can be. Mississippi State 40-17. Texas A&M 26-20. Arkansas 24-21. So there's the first 7 games of the season. And then they kind of started perking up a little bit. Tennessee 34-20. LSU 42-28. Kentucky 49-21. Chattanooga and FCS team 66-10, really struggled and had to pull out a miracle against Auburn 27-24, and that's the same score by which they won against Auburn and Georgia. Alabama is a beatable team, but they are still Alabama. And playing them in the iconic Rose Bowl, no, I'm not excited about being on a 5-hour flight. That's 5 hours and 30 minutes, which is weird. When I lived in California, it was 5 hours. So then it'd always be like 4 hours and 15 minutes, 4 hours and 30. So it better not be that long. I mean, I guess I gotta get used to it if I want to fly places, but I'm getting better at flying. It's just I don't like it. But I think having that, I wanted to go to New Orleans because I thought that it would be just a more fun atmosphere. But once it was announced the Rose Bowl, all of that prestige of that game kind of came screaming back to me, and I was excited about that. I was even more excited when I saw that this whole thing kicks off for the media at Disneyland. I'm going to ride me some Rise of the Resistance. I'm going to make Angelique go on it. I'm very excited about that. And so I mean, all of that I think is fun, but I just think that when you have the most prestigious bowl game, you have it in Pasadena, obviously, which is the only area in Los Angeles County that I'm still fond of. And then you have, you've got the backdrop, you've got the brand name. I much prefer all of that over facing Florida State. I much prefer just like because if you were sitting here saying, here's what Mike Norvell says about Michigan, then I don't think any of you are nearly as interested as here's what Nick Saban says about Michigan. That's how I feel. I care way more about what Nick Saban says than I do about what Mike Norvell says. Now, I feel awful for Florida State. They absolutely deserve to be in this situation, to be in the college football playoff. But I also understand, right? Like, if you're really trying to get the 4 best teams, at this point, it's even though they're undefeated, it's hard to put them in. Just based off of just kind of everything. I do think that they've shown a lot of perseverance. And I do think that Michigan is in the situation where you probably don't want it to be, because even though Michigan will have to, in order to win a national championship, have to face Alabama and either Texas or Washington in order to win it all, Florida State can go out and beat Georgia and then will certainly claim to be a national champion. And I'm sure some people will go along with them on that. Michigan will have yet another, quote, split title, half championship, even though Michigan will have earned what it got. So I feel bad for Florida State, but I am very excited about this particular matchup. And now I was in the room when with all the players and everyone when it was announced. I see some people saying like, oh, they definitely were, when they saw Alabama came up, they were like, oh, that's not who we want to play or whatever. And some say like, oh, it was just a reaction just to like the rest of us to it not being Florida State, just kind of given the shock of being an undefeated team. Anyone who wants to tell you exactly what they were thinking in that moment is just describing whatever they want to believe in that moment. It was a tepid reaction to Alabama being announced. That's how I put it out there. And it could be for either of the reasons. Now, I will say, having talked to the players we talked to, Mike Barrett, Blake Corum, Chris Jenkins, Donovan Edwards, afterwards, they were all seemingly very excited to play Alabama. They at least showed the enthusiasm literally moments afterwards, like, okay, we're good to go. Like, this is exciting. Like, they had talking points ready to go for Alabama already, and they're excited for the challenge. That's exactly what you want out of that. So I take that for what it's worth. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's maybe a little bit of both. But anyone who will tell you one way or the other, it's like they heard Alabama and said, oh, we just don't want to play them. I think that they're trying to push an agenda on one end, and ones that say like, oh, it was just the Florida State thing, right? They're just shocked. I think that they're trying to push an agenda on the other end. So it's probably a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. So how do I feel about this Michigan-Alabama matchup? We're going to get into some of the advanced stats a little bit, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to tell you about the one disparity that I found of these teams here in just a moment. Before we do listen, it's Monday night. The weather is cold, but NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. And right now, say you get to this before Monday Night Football starts, which is maybe you do, maybe you don't. You can have a little extra fun by playing along with FanDuel. And with new customers, they get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. It's $150 just if your team wins. That's it. That's simple. Go put $5 on the game tonight. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. That simple. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Instant withdrawals, spreads, player props, over-unders, a heck of a lot more. Makes the app just so absolutely incredible. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I'll tell you what, once the season ends, once you get through those 13 weeks, my body and mind crash. It's taken me until my plan was to wake up and do a podcast. I didn't do one yesterday because I got home and just crashed. I was struggling to stay awake while driving, 4 hours of sleep before getting up, getting breakfast, getting over to the West End to meet up with the team and all of that stuff. Picked up Zuri when I got back, sat down on the couch, didn't mean to fall asleep, but fell asleep. Woke up, went to bed, and that was it. Yeah, today, it's just been more of the same. I've gotten like 12 hours of sleep, I think. That's how it goes. at the end of the season every year. I don't feel like I'm getting sick, so that's the good thing, because usually today's the day that I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. Maybe I'm fighting it off. Maybe that's why the sleep. I don't know. But I'm glad to be here with you, because a couple hours ago, I'm like, I don't know if I can stay awake for a whole episode. But I'm not going to say I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed here, but I'm here, and I'm excited to be with you in the moment. So I did meet some people in the game, now that I think about it. Someone asked me when the pod was dropping. It's a pretty normal question these days. And my answer to most of you is, I don't know. Michigan, Alabama. I am excited about this one, and I'm excited about any of the slate. If I have my own way, Michigan plays Alabama and wins, and then Michigan plays Texas and wins. Those are the two teams that I would most want to see, not based off of style of play or anything like that. It's based off of just what I want, the teams I want to see, because I would prefer, and I've been saying this all season, I prefer the big name matchup. I prefer the Georgias of the world. Now, do I prefer the result that came with the Georgia in 2021? No, I don't. But I prefer the Georgias of the world. Do I think Michigan can win this game? Absolutely. Do I think they will? I don't know yet. I'm probably going to pick Michigan to lose, kind of under the same principle of why I picked Michigan to lose to Ohio State for several years, as saying on this very program that I will do that until they win. And then once they win, then I can change it. And I did exactly that. So that's kind of where I'm at with the college football playoff semifinal. I do think Michigan will have they'll be perked up a little bit more. And this is not, Michigan at the number 1 seed is not going into this in the same type of thing as Georgia, who had dropped to 3. Michigan had risen to 2. And that, Georgia was considered far and away the best program in all of college football that entire year. This is Alabama rising from 8 all the way up here. So there's that. There's one, when you look at what Alabama and Michigan do, they are very similar in almost every way, fashion, okay? Almost entirely, except for one place. When you look categorically at everything, like there might be some things where Alabama's just, it's a little bit better, and some that are Michigan's a little bit better, but when you look at like the stats, they're almost perfectly aligned. Michigan is slightly better than Alabama in almost every metric. Alabama, I would say, has played a few tougher teams because they've played, Michigan's obviously played 3 ranked teams. Alabama has played, I think, about, maybe 4. I think Tennessee was ranked at the time, but they've played Ole Miss, LSU. They've played, let's see, do I still have this up? Texas. So they played Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia. So they've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 ranked matchups, and they lost one of them. So there's that. And they've won all but one of them. But there's the one place where they have a stat disparity, and that's sacks allowed. They are 125th in the country in sacks allowed, having allowed 43. Michigan has gotten worse at sacks allowed lately, but they've still only, just to tell you exactly what that number is, 18. Alabama has given up 43. Michigan's allowing 1.39 sacks per game now. Obviously, that's due to a couple multi-sack games. Alabama is allowing 3.31 sacks per game. This is an opportunity for the defensive line to feast, but they have to keep contained on Jalen Milroe. Absolutely have to. When it comes to the advanced analytics, Bill Connolly tweeted earlier today that he would have Michigan winning. I think it was 29-20. Michigan is still the number 1 team in the country according to the post-13 SP Plus rankings, with the number 9 defense, number 9 offense, number 2 defense, number 5 special teams. Alabama is ranked number 8 with the number 13 offense, the number 8 defense, and number 4 special teams. So just slightly better on special teams, but worse than the others. Look at Brian Fremo's FEI ratings, and Michigan is also number 1 with the number 5 offense and number 4 defense. Strength of schedule is, I don't know how to read these things very well on this because I don't go to Fremo Index often. 36. Alabama's number 11 with the 21 offense and number 9 defense. And with the strength of schedule, it's 6. So they've done against a better strength of schedule. But when you look at, again, they beat Georgia, number 4. Michigan beat Ohio State, number 3. Alabama also lost to number 6 Texas and beat number 7 LSU. So there's that. Michigan has to also can claim Ohio State 3, Penn State 5. So that's good stuff. Ohio State is the number 1 defense, according to FEI. Michigan, with the number 5 offense, put up 30 points. This game will be a lot more imaginative for the Wolverines than the Iowa game, and I would expect it to look more a lot like Ohio State, especially because they know they have a hump to get over. Will it work? I don't know. ESPN, Adam Rittenberg, who is a friend of mine, he has Michigan losing to Alabama 31-23, saying that Alabama is a flawed but ascending team as it displayed by controlling the SEC championship game. Jalen Milroe is among the nation's most improved players and will attack downfield against a Michigan secondary led by takeaway generating star Mike Sainristil. The disparity between the two teams in the postseason is too much to ignore. Alabama's Nick Saban has won 7 national titles and boasts a 9-4 record in CFP games. Jim Harbaugh, like his college coach, Bo Schembechler, has been much better in the Big Ten than on the national stage, going 1-6 in bowl games and 0-2 in the CFP. And it says Milroe will lead a big fourth quarter as the Tide roll on to the national title game. I trust Michigan's defense, I think, a little bit more than Alabama's, personally. I trust J.J. McCarthy over Jalen Milroe, personally. But Michigan needs its offensive line to step up and play better. It needs the run game to be better. There have been teams that have run on Alabama, Auburn being one who has, right? So looking at this real fast here, looking at what other teams have done, not everyone, right? There's the Ole Miss, 29 carries for 56 yards. That's not great. Auburn, 42 carries for 244 yards. LSU, 24 carries for 206 yards, and Jaden Daniels being a big part of that. USF, 46 for 177. That's only 3.8 yards per carry, but that's still something. But Georgia could not run on them. When it comes to Alabama rushing, they did really well against LSU. They did really well against Middle Tennessee, South Florida. They did okay, pretty good against Arkansas. They did not great, but good, decent 42 for 138 against Tennessee, 44 for 192 against Auburn, 41 for 114 against Georgia. It feels very similar, right? They feel like very similar teams in a lot of ways. But I trust Michigan more. That said, I'll still pick against them because that's just how we're going to do it. Anyway. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to continue to dive deeper into all things. Michigan did not have to worry about losing anyone to the transfer portal. Ohio State certainly did. We're probably going to get into that tomorrow. And we're going to get into just a lot of other things that are just out there in the ether at the moment. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.